Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2 Weeks to Jobless podcast. This is the first episode, and I have the lovely Roukianicia with me, blessed in the
Hello, everyone.
podcast. The fact that I've even got a guest, I'm so happy about that. But she has a really good story to tell as well about what she's been going through and what her situation has been like with job hunting. So yeah, we just like to just first iterate that this podcast is all about sharing people's experiences around job hunting. And, I think we want to have like a really transparent conversation around the whole subject matter. So, yeah, I hope you can all, just appreciate Rockanicia's time as I do. And yeah, let's get into this. Do you just want to say a few words about yourself? Maybe also mention what industry you work in as well, or did work in. That might
hmm
be great.
Yeah, sure. So, hey everyone. I'm Roukianicia. I'm 25. So recently I got made redundant from my HR role. So I was an office manager and a HR coordinator. And I've been working in that field for about 2.5 years now.
Mhm.
So yeah, just currently job hunting for another
Mhm.
role.
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, I think you slightly touched on one of my questions, but I'm still gonna ask it anyway. But we'll go straight into it with the first questions. So, how did you get into this situation where you are job hunting?
So about 2 weeks ago, I got made redundant from the company that I was working with. Yeah, they kind of just said that they didn't need me anymore. So they were going to make me redundant. Yeah, so obviously it was really hard at the time because it was quite sudden. I wasn't expecting it at all. So yeah.
That's pretty crazy. I was actually going to ask that as well. Did they give you any kind of prompt or like notice or anything like that so that you kind of knew it was coming, or how did that actually unfold in terms of events?
So I literally went in on a Wednesday morning. Everything was fine, everything was good. I usually have these like um weekly meetings with my manager at the time. So we just had our weekly meeting, I think in the afternoon. And then she just like kind of warned me before, like an hour and a half maybe before the meeting, that like the head of legal was gonna join. She didn't tell me why. She was just like, "Oh, see you in the meeting." Um, and then I was just like, okay, went into the meeting. Kind of, I was definitely stressed because obviously I didn't know what was going on. And then I was thinking, oh, what have I done wrong? And then I'm backchecking
Mm,
on everything that I've done like in the past like week or so.
hmm
And then yeah, I just sort of went in and then they were just like, like we've been because I think at the time we were looking for a new office and deciding
mm.
like what was best for the company and the team. And she was just like, as you know, we've been looking for a new office, but we're not really sure if we even want to have an office anymore. So we've decided to make you redundant.
Wow.
So it was very brutal. Because obviously, like I said, I was not expecting it at all. Um, and yeah, it was just really sudden. And I think I would say I like cried nonstop for about 3 days.
Oh,
It was very
bless you.
like on and off. Yeah, it was very on and
Mm,
off because obviously it's really hard to just have your job kind of taken away from you like that.
hmm
Um, so yeah, it was really sudden. Yeah, so I
That,
had no
that
warning ever, and
that
that's
must have
it.
been so hard because even you just explaining how the events unfolded behind you being made redundant, the fact that there wasn't any kind of prompt, there wasn't no notice. An hour before the meeting, you're just being made aware that, somebody from the legal team is going to join. You don't even know what the subject matter is on. It's almost like
Mm.
being completely blindsided until 60 minutes before, such a big decision that's going to have a huge impact on your life is being made.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I was 100% blindsided, like no doubt about that.
yeah, that sounds like a really horrible experience. And I can empathize, especially with how you were saying that you was crying a lot, like just processing that. I can imagine there was a lot of mixed feelings of like upset, anger, frustration. Um, yeah, like what you was clearly sad, but were there any other feelings that were kind of mixed in when like you was going through the processing of what had happened?
I think there was a mixture of, I think sadness was definitely like the number one in like how I was feeling. There was also a lot of anger because I just felt like I was being treated unfairly. I feel
Hmm.
like, generally speaking, I'm quite a people person, which is why I got into HR in the first place. I feel like you don't treat people like that, regardless of what the situation is. I feel like there should have been more of an opportunity for me to sort of develop or maybe go into a different role or been asked, what I would prefer as a person rather than just seeing me as, a role. Because I feel like the company kind of saw me like that. Like, oh, I am in this role and they want to kind of take me out of that. And then yeah, there was a lot of frustration because I just didn't feel like it was fair at all. Um, but I think above all, it was definitely like relief as well. There's a side of me that wasn't happy at the company. I'll be honest. I hadn't been for about, I want to say 6 months, maybe before I was made redundant.
Hmm.
And I was definitely like trying to find a way to actually get a new role, but it was just really hard. It's really hard to navigate, like having a normal life, a social life, and your job on top of it, and then doing job hunting because I feel like job hunting is just a 9 to 5 on its own.
Yeah,
Um,
literally. Hmm.
so yeah, there was definitely like a mix of emotions. But yeah, relief was definitely one of them as well.
Okay, okay. I wanna touch on as well some of the things or some of the aspects of your working life that was making you unhappy. Um, But before we get into that, I'm just conscious of the fact that I've got a free trial on this. So
Yeah.
let me spin up a new meeting and we can continue. Okay, perfect. So we left off we left off at the point where I wanted to ask you um what were the aspects of your working life that were making you unhappy?
So the main thing for me was definitely development.
Hmm.
So when I joined the company, they had always told me that I would develop into a more HR focused role,
Yeah.
rather than not having the office management aspect.
Hmm.
And that was something that like kept on being pushed back. So first it was, oh, we're hiring a new HR manager first, and then we'll see. And then once that
Hmm.
was done, it was like, oh, we'll see that in January because this was last year. And then like with January, it sort of kept getting pushed back as well. And the development never really came.
Hmm.
And I think it was really frustrating for me because I know people that came at a similar time as me or had, their job offer at a similar time as me that had been in their role and then they went on to actually be promoted. So I kind of felt like I was being left behind.
Hmm.
And that was like a struggle for me and I was very like vocal about it, but nothing
Hmm.
was really done. So that's like at one point, I kind of like, I don't want to say I gave up, but I just started looking elsewhere because I was just like, this isn't working for me and I need
Yeah.
to keep my options open. So that was the main thing. And then the second thing was also the diversity aspect,
Yeah.
uh, which is another thing that I was very vocal about as well.
Yeah.
So I did say that like me being the only black woman within the whole company was something that I was uncomfortable with.
Hmm.
And it wasn't, they were like, oh yeah, we need to do better. We need to be more diverse and recruit more people from a diverse background. So not only
Hmm.
black, but also like Asian and other like minorities. But
Yeah.
that's something that it just was never done once again. So yeah, like for me, I think there's only so much you can do as an employee as well, like when you're expressing these things to your manager. And I really wanted to get involved in the hiring process as well.
Hmm.
It just, yeah, nothing was really done, to be honest.
Mm. It's really sad where you have somebody who's as passionate as yourself who's saying, look, like these are things that I think would make a really good and positive impact on the company. These are my suggestions, but there isn't any kind of response, there isn't any kind of action. It doesn't sound like anyone even came back to you and said, we've taken on board what you said, and this is when we plan to try and, address that. It sounds
Mhm.
like it was very much just pushed to the side, and it kind of is a reflection of the culture where it seems like the diversity that you've mentioned would have probably invited that kind of thinking, that way of thinking of wanting to do things with a little bit more transparency, with a little bit more integrity to like tackling some of these things because diversity, as we all know, is a very important factor in companies. And I feel like a lot of
100%.
companies don't really take it by the helm and address it. They kind of dance around it, the actual issue, or it's almost like avoiding it, like instead of actually tackling it. And the fact that you was vocal about this, you was vocal about your career development. Again, it doesn't really feel like it's something that they made a priority or an importance. They didn't make a priority of being able to make you achieve the goals that you're aspiring to reach. And it's almost like what's the saying? The label not fitting the tin. If that's what you've spoken about from as early on at being at the company, the fact that they haven't done this, it clearly would make anybody feel unhappy, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, that
Definitely,
that makes
100%.
sense. Mm,
I think as well, when it comes to diversity, there's a lot of aspects to diversity. So for me in particular, I was talking about race, but there's other things as well. There's gender, there's
yep,
like people from different backgrounds, like economic backgrounds.
yep,
There's also race, there's disability. There's so many like aspects of diversity, and I wanted to
yep,
kind of have a look at that on a more broader aspect. But I never got the possibility to.
yeah, yeah. No, well, that's quite sad that they didn't take it serious, you know. It sounds like something they really should be taken serious. Um,
100%.
but okay, so I'm gonna revisit this question because you've touched on it, but I'm gonna revisit it anyway. But how long have you been job hunting?
Um, so I'd say like properly for about 2 weeks,
Okay,
properly and
okay,
consistently, yeah, for about 2 weeks since I got made redundant. I think
yeah,
I came
yeah,
home and I, I started applying for jobs straight away as soon
yeah.
as it happened. So yeah, for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think a lot of us, as soon as we find ourselves in a situation like that or a similar situation, we want to find work as soon as, so we
Hmm.
go start applying straight away. Um, okay, so I'm going to move on to my next question. Have you had any support, maybe from friends or family?
I'm actually lucky enough to have a lot of support around me. Like one thing that I'm very, very grateful for is the support that I've had.
Mm,
So even on the day that it happened and I announced it to some of my colleagues, they were very, very supportive. They, encouraged me and told me, like some of them have actually been through this themselves. So like I was like very, very encouraged and very supported. And then my friends like send me jobs like on a daily when they do find them or anything that's like that I want to work in. My family have been very supportive as well. Like yeah, my family friends, like my old colleagues, like even people like strangers like on LinkedIn, because I've done a LinkedIn announcement about it as well. Like
yeah,
even people on LinkedIn have just like been really, really like supportive. Like yeah, there's a lot of kindness in this world, and it's really good to know that like even strangers will actually come and empathize with you. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I remember coming across your LinkedIn post and just feeling like I just want to support what you're going through because like there's so many of us I'm always saying there's so many of us that are currently looking for jobs and we need to support each other because it's a really tough time to go through that, to go through the process of job hunting, but to go through the process of job hunting whilst not having a job, it just amplifies that pressure. And
Hmm.
yeah, like this is why I wanted to touch on that question of have you had any support? Because I know like from the financial side of things, if you're like renting or if you know you're having to make some kind of contribution maybe to a mortgage that you might have or something, then there's that financial pressure, isn't there? So
Mhm.
those kind of things become, you know, quite challenging to deal with overall. So
Yeah,
it's good that you've
definitely.
got support around you. That's really good. Um, okay, so I'm going to move on to this question now. How fair have job application processes been? Um, and maybe you have an example of a um, good or bad process that you've been a part of.
Uh, um, I would say they've been okay. I wouldn't say fair is the word because I feel like it does depend.
Hmm.
So yeah, personally I live in London, so there's like it's very, very competitive.
Hmm.
And I have come across like jobs that are really good. You know, the description is perfect and it matches exactly what I want to do, but the salary is way too low.
Yes.
So I've had like I think two or three screenings with talent acquisition specialists, and you know they're just like they're really excited and like we describe the job and then we get to the salary bit and it's like
Mm,
it's way lower than
yeah.
what I was earning before in my previous role. So I've just had to like kind of say, you know, thank you for the offer, but you know, I can't really sacrifice that because like you said before, there's you know financial responsibilities that certain of us have. And I think even just living in London, just in general, it's an expensive city. So
100%.
being on, you know, a very low salary, it's just not gonna sustain you. So
Yeah.
obviously there is this like sort of desperation to get a new role and to get a new job, but then it's like at what price?
Yes.
So yeah, so for me, it's just like I've had to turn down these jobs, even though I know that I would be really good in it and I could excel in them because of the salary.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I've also like had unfortunate experiences where I've actually been like ghosted by certain employers as well.
Wow.
So I had a recent one actually. So I got through to the second stage interview. So I had
Hmm.
the screening. I think it was the screening first. No, it was just the screening, and then I had the first stage, and
Hmm.
then the manager was like, you know, I'll reach out to you in like 2 weeks. Like it won't be anything like more than that.
Hmm.
And then we'll, you know, be able to go through to the next stage, and then you can come to the office. And she sort of explained to me how it would go.
Hmm.
Um, and she never got back to me. So I spoke to my mentor, and my mentor was like, you know, just send her an email, like nothing, like it wouldn't hurt just to send her an email just to chase her up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I done that, and I CC'd the talent acquisition specialist as well in the email.
Hmm.
And yeah, no response from neither of them. And I think it's been about 2 weeks now. So obviously I've been ghosted by an employer.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think it unfortunately happens quite a lot.
Hmm.
I think a lady had even reached out to me on LinkedIn. This was before I even got made redundant. And she had like offered a job role to me.
Hmm.
And she was just like, "Oh yeah, like that's great, that's brilliant. Like I'll call you tomorrow at 10 a.m." And then I realized I was like, she doesn't have my phone number, so how is she gonna call me? Um, yeah. So then I was just
Oh my
like,
gosh.
yeah, I was just like, oh, okay, this is a bit, it's a bit strange. But this has
Yeah.
actually happened to me previously when I had finished uni.
Yeah.
This recruiter had reached out to me on LinkedIn as well. He sent me like a job description, a salary, like he sent me everything to me, and he was just like, you know, here's my like. I sent him my phone number as well. We had a phone screening, we had a
Hmm.
call, and then he was just like, yeah, we'll move on to the next stage. And then once again, like completely like blanked me and ghosted me, even though I messaged him on LinkedIn. I said, oh, like, you know, what are the next steps?
Hmm.
No response. So unfortunately, it actually happens quite often, or it's happened to
Wow.
me quite often. I'm not sure about other people, but I think it's very, it's just very rough to be on the job market.
Yeah.
So I think it's competitive, and I think a lot of companies actually lack a lot of empathy, because it is
Mm,
definitely a waste of time if you can't even, send an email or send a message to say, I'm not interested anymore, we've found someone else, or whatever the reason is. I don't feel like it's a lot to ask from companies, but yeah, for some reason there is this tendency to just blank people and just be like, oh, like they'll get it eventually, like, we're
mm.
not interested. So yeah.
I'm in complete agreement with you. I feel like if an employer is no longer interested in a candidate, the least they can do is let the candidate know that, they're no longer interested. They found somebody else, the budget's fallen through something. Just like,
Yeah.
don't just leave people on limbo, out of limbo, just wondering what's going on, because it's
Mhm.
torture. You just don't know what's actually happening. Are you progressing in the application? Are you not? And I guess like I have like overthinking tendencies. So like for me, I'd be overthinking that whole situation. Like, you know, did I perform well? Did I not perform?
Definitely.
Is there like an actual problem, with that, between the hiring manager and the recruiter? Again, you just don't know because there's no conclusive answer. So yeah, like it sounds like a really, really rubbish situation to be in. I've definitely been in
Mhm.
that situation personally as well, where, recruiters haven't got back to me and whatnot. So yeah, it's tough, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. I think touching onto that as well, I've actually been in a situation where I had a really good screening with the recruiter in the beginning,
Mhm.
and she was really lovely. We even connected on LinkedIn, and she was just like, send me a message if you need anything. Like, she was very, very like open and very lovely about it. And then I did actually send her a message on LinkedIn asking her, if I could get some feedback as to why I didn't actually move on to the next stage for the
Yeah.
role, and if she did know anyone that was recruiting for a HR role, if she could recommend me.
Mhm.
And yes, she completely blanked me as well. So
Wow.
it's actually quite strange the way people work, because
Mm,
she's the one that actually suggested it, which is why I was
mm,
so like open to actually messaging her.
yeah.
And I honestly, it just doesn't take a lot to just reply to a message, or
Hmm.
just just even say, you don't have anything, you're not interested, or whatever it is. I don't think it takes a lot to respond to a message, especially if it's someone that's looking for a new role.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Because having a job is what informs a lot of people's financial security. Like a lot of people depend on their job to be able to pay,
Mhm.
some of the financial considerations and commitments we were talking about earlier. So yeah, like I feel like there can't really be any um what's the word I'm looking for? Like negligence when it comes to dealing with people who are looking for a job because they're looking for a job for a reason. Nobody's doing it
Mhm.
just for fun. Like we have a reason why we're looking for our next job. So it just feels like we need to be dealt with as people that are job hunting. We need to be dealt with in integrity. We need to be dealt with that level of consideration that we've made the effort to go and
Yeah.
apply for a job and go through with any assessment that we may need to go through.
Mhm.
All of that, it just feels like it needs to be taken into consideration and yeah, just like dealt with like I guess respectfully in whatever
Mhm.
it is. So no,
Definitely,
I think
100%.
I think that was a good point. Um, so I'm gonna move on to this question now. What is your biggest concern around job hunting?
I think right now I'm very like early on in the job hunting aspect. But I think my biggest concern is actually not getting a role. I think it's very early on in looking for a role, but it's like the more the days go by, the more the worrying starts to increase.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, okay, like I'm getting like let's say 4 interviews or whatever next week, and then
Hmm.
it's like, okay, like what's the likelihood of them actually going to the next stage? And then after that, what's the likelihood of me actually getting them? So obviously it's just
Mm,
like more time, the screening is the easiest part, but then it just gets harder afterwards.
yeah.
So I think that's the biggest worry for me right now is actually getting a role, because I've given myself until mid-November to be able to get one.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just a bit hard. I think I don't want to fall into a rut where I kind of get like depressed or it really impacts my mental health.
Hmm.
So I'm just like trying to, keep going and just staying like motivating myself as well. But yeah, that's my biggest worry, I would say.
Okay, okay. I think that makes sense as being your biggest worry. And I can definitely resonate with you when you say you don't want to get into that rut. Like you have to find ways to motivate yourself because once you've gone through like a dozen of different job applications, it gets hard. It gets hard. Like it's like you have to get used to hearing the word no. You have to get used to being declined. And like it really does take a mental toll and a psychological toll on applicants. And I just feel like that side of job hunting doesn't really get enough attention brought to it. And this is why we have like a lot of people who, especially more recently, have come out on social media and spoken about the challenges, um, the frustrations, the worries, the concerns around job hunting, because
Mhm.
it truly does take its toll. And like, as you said earlier, it's a job in itself to be job hunting. So now
Yeah.
you're job hunting and you're going for multiple roles, different roles, different roles, different roles. And like now you're just thinking like, yeah, like when can I get this job that's going to put
Mhm.
me in a stable situation once again?
Yeah,
No.
definitely, 100%. I think it impacts your mental health like so quickly. Like
Yeah.
you can easily like fall into a rut, and if you don't have the right support as well, it just makes things even harder.
Hmm.
Um, because for me, like I'm really, really grateful once again for my support system because everybody was there for me. And, on the day I got made redundant, my friends came around to mine and they like bought me food and we just,
Aw.
watched Love is Blind. And yeah, it was just really sweet. It was really cute, but they were there for me like straight away. And that whole week, like I had everybody that was like messaging me, encouraging me, and just motivating me to actually keep my head up.
Hmm.
Because I think if I didn't have that, I easily could have gone into this rut hole and I would have
Yeah.
struggled to get myself back out.
Yeah, yeah, I get that entirely. I think that's so sweet that your friends came round on the first week, watching Love is Blind. Like, love
Yeah,
that. I actually love that. Yeah, so
yeah,
that's good. It sounds like you do have a really good and strong support system.
yeah, 100%. I'm very grateful for it.
All right, that's good. Okay, so we're coming up to the end of this podcast episode. And one thing that I did mention briefly prior to us recording is about the t-shirt giveaway that I'm doing. So every guest gets the opportunity to put forward a motivational mantra. So I'm going to ask you what's yours in a moment. And whoever at the end of the year gets the most votes on the motivational mantra will get a free t-shirt printed with their motivational mantra. So as you can see here, mine is 2 weeks to jobless and every day is a blessing. So now I'm going to ask you, what motivational mantra would you print on a t-shirt?
So my motivational mantra would be keep going forward and no matter what you do, don't look back.
I love that. I love that. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Just keep going forward, guys. Like honestly, the road is long and life can throw a lot of downs at you, but just keep going forward. Like don't look back.
Yeah, love that. Yeah. Really wise words,
Yeah.
good advice. And you're going through it. Like we're going through it, aren't we? So, you know. But yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, Roukianicia, on the podcast. Thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
being my first guest on the first
No
episode.
worries. I'm
Um,
honored.
I'm I'm honored to have you, honestly. Like I get such a like what's the word I'm looking for? A genuine and very like caring like vibe from yourself. I can tell that the roles that you go into next, you're going to be passionate about. And yeah, if you just like to maybe just share what kind of roles you're open to for any potential employers that might come across this episode.
So I am definitely interested in HR roles, specifically within the DNI field, and also within people experience and employee engagement.
Mhm.
So yeah, if there's any employers here, please do message me on LinkedIn. I'm still open to opportunities. So yeah,
Okay, perfect. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Roukianicia.
no
I'm wishing you
worries.
all
Thank
the
you,
best.
Tyrese.
And
Thank you.
yeah, like let's stay connected. Like let's, support one another. And
Mhm.
yeah, hopefully something does come your way sooner than later.
No worries. Thank you so much, Tyrese, for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.